Hi, everybody. Welcome. So great to see you all on. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this space with me because I get to speak about Emunah. And when I get to speak about Emunah, I get to feel it for me. And all of us together, we're having this collective experience of talking about Emunah. So we all get to grow our Emunah simply by showing up and being here. So a big shkoyach to everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk a little bit about Parshas Pinchas and the Midah of Kenaos. This is shalom to you. Great to see you and be with you too. Thank you so much for being here. So Reb Ashel, Zeichet Tzadik Livracha, tells us Pinchas did a incredibly courageous act of azus, okay, of Kenaos, and with kedusha, with holiness, he got up and he killed two people, a prince of Klal Yisrael and the daughter of royalty of Moab, who were committing an abomination together, and he put an end to it in public. They decided they were committing this abomination, and Pinchas took action where everybody else was stunned and terrified, and they didn't know what to do. They just didn't know what to do until Pinchas came along and took care of it. And then after that happened, Klal Yisrael was complaining about Pinchas. And they said, he shouldn't have done it. What kind of thing did he do? It wasn't fitting for him. They said, you know what? He's descended from idol worshippers. That's why he did this. It didn't. They were saying lashon hara about him, motzei shem ra, not lashon hara, motzei shem ra, that it didn't come from something good in Pinchas, but that it came from the side of him that was descended on his mother's side. He was descended from idol worshippers. Until Hakadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu that Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, that the yichus that Hashem gave for Pinchas was that he was the son of Elazar, he was the grandson of Aaron HaKohen. And that Hakadosh Baruch Hu said that Pinchas was the one that he turned back the, I'm not going to call it the wrath, but I'm going to call it the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's jealousy on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves Klal Yisrael so much that, as it were, again, whenever the Torah brings a midah of Hashem, that is a midah of people, like jealousy or anger or love, for that matter. Whenever a midah of Hashem is brought, it's only to allow us to have a concept of what that could mean, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is way beyond human feelings, okay? But because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's great love for us, and because he wants us to connect to him in the right and appropriate way. So when something so inappropriate was done by such important people in such a public, disgraceful way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, was jealous for Klal Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu felt jealous on behalf of Klal Yisrael. And so that was the anger that burned, that such a thing shouldn't happen because it could lead the people astray. And chas v'shalom, it would take the people away from the pure connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because of that, there was a terrible anger against Klal Yisrael, who were basically like deer in the headlights. They're just like, what? What are we supposed to do with this? But Pinchas saved them, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he testifies against them. He saved Klal Yisrael from destruction because of that. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised them Pinchas, the bris, the eternal covenant of kahuna, which they get to bless the people. They get to, that through them, the Kohanim become the conduit for bringing down blessings. And Pinchas was chosen that he would become this Kohen, that he would become a vehicle, a conduit for bringing down bracha for Klal Yisrael. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu testified on behalf of Pinchas that he did it with pure motives. So the question comes along, Didn't Klal Yisrael know that Pinchas was descended from Elazar and Aaron a Kohen? Wasn't that something that Klal Yisrael knew? So why did Kosh Baruch Hu have to come and say it to Moshe Rabbeinu? And the answer is that Kosh Baruch Hu. One second. Oh, and then the next question that Rabosha asks is, if the Torah wants to then say that the yichus of Pinchas was so elevated on the side of his father, of Aaron a Kohen, does that then equal out or like nullify the fact that he came on his mother's side from idol worshippers? Is it like a competition of yichus that was going on? And so the Ma'or Shemesh says that Klal Yisrael was complaining against Pinchas, and they claimed that which he had done, this killing the Nasi of Klal Yisrael and the daughter of the kings of Midian, he didn't intend l'shem shamayim. He didn't intend for pure purposes, and he really was just doing a cruel act. He was just acting out of his animalistic tendencies, and anybody who's descended from idol worshippers is also a cruel person. At those times, idol worshippers were prepared to Rahman al-Islam, what we hear about what they did in Molech, that they brought their children and threw them through fires in order to offer them as sacrifices to idol worship. That idol worship was synonymous with cruelty. So that's the way that it was. Does that then? So just one second. So that was his natural Yerusha then. He had a natural cruel streak from his mother, from the side of idol worship in his family, claimed Klal Yisrael. And that was what it was. Whoever does avodah zarah is also a murderer and an idol worshipper. And that's what Pinchas was. He was the opposite of holiness. But a Kodesh Baruch Hu, when a Kodesh Baruch Hu comes and says in the Torah and testifies about Pinchas that this act of kenoos that he did, Davka, came from a holy source. It came from the yichus of his father and from Aaron a Kohen. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the heart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the intention. And any act can be misinterpreted by people. Even Pinchas's act was misinterpreted until Kodesh Baruch Hu came along and said, no, this is coming from a holy source. He's ben Elazar, ben Aaron a Kohen. V'kol kulo l'shem shamayim is kavin, and he intended entirely and purely l'shem shamayim. He wanted to remove the chilul Hashem, and he wanted to also restore the peace between Am Yisrael and the Kodesh Baruch Hu, which had been separated. Because as soon as such a public act of such important figures was in the parsha over here, something very dramatic had to take place in order to restore the Kiddush Hashem. And that's what Pinchas wanted. Pinchas had a deep sense of responsibility and a deep sense of Avas Yisrael. And he was even prepared, says Reb Ashi, he was even prepared to give up his whole Olam Haba. He knew that it needed to be done. He was willing to give up his own personal chelik. He said, okay, because it wasn't that he had received a Torah that Kenoim Paigim by, and then Moshe Rabbeinu remembered the halacha and said, yeah, it's a halacha that Kenoim, that somebody who it burns within him a fervor of love and responsibility for Hashem and love for Klal Yisrael, he can come along and he's allowed to do such a thing, to eradicate such an abomination from Klal Yisrael. He's allowed to do such a thing. But Pinchas hadn't heard that. He says, in order to restore this relationship, in order to get rid of such a cherpa, of such a disgrace, he was prepared to give up everything that he had in order to restore that. This midah of kinaros then is something that let's discuss for a little bit, because it's something that comes up a lot. Kinaros is a branch of anger. And as we know, anger is a person who acts out of anger is considered like one who worships avodah zarah. So maybe we could say, really, that Pinchas was like avodah zarah because he acted out of anger, because he had kinaros. And so we have to understand that there is a branch of kinaros that is positive, that is directed for the good, whose source is out of a burning, a passion for responsibility, for protecting the honor of Klal Yisrael. That's what Rabbi says. He wanted to protect the honor of Klal Yisrael, and he intended to protect the honor of Hashem, of Shemayim. And so that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu then shows his protection and his love and his ushering Pinchas into the kahuna to show us all what this midah is. Kenos is not an everyday midah in most cases. Okay, most people are not called to eradicate a cherpa. Most people are not called to stand up with anger against injustice. But there may be situations in our lives where there are people who need to be stood up for, where a sense of responsibility for what is right, a sense of the kavod Hashem, the true kavod Hashem, needs to be expressed. And sometimes it needs, kind of extreme measures. We're not going to take a spear and start, piercing people, chas v'shalom. We're not going to get into those kinds of trouble, okay? In modern day terms, it may mean standing up for ourselves or for the underdog or for people who are being harmed. And it may sometimes mean doing something that other people may question our motives. Other people may say, she wasn't thinking to do it out of purity. She's just, doing it because who knows what a family is like. Yeah, like Pinchas. They'll question our yichus. They'll question our motives. They will question why we did it. What right do we have to do things? Kenos is a midah that is going to be misinterpreted and is going to be misunderstood, just as Pinchas was misunderstood. And he was judged negatively. And yet, when we see injustice and when we see things that are so wrong, and when we see things taking place and our sense of responsibility says, you've got to do something. It's not okay. There are people being harmed here. Then it's time to really ask ourselves, okay, I have this motivation. I'm sensing something that is not right. And maybe I'm even feeling angry. What are we going to do about it? So many times, and I have to tell you that this has come up multiple times, maybe even 10 times over the last couple of years, okay, where a woman has said to me, I have an anger issue. I have a real anger issue, and I keep on trying to work on my anger. And already when a certain kind of woman starts to tell me about this, I already know where it's coming from because I've heard this so many times before. And really what I'm gonna talk about the end of the story. The end of the story is I'll usually enable and empower this woman to understand she doesn't have an anger issue. She has an unmet needs issue. When our needs are unmet, we often react with what looks like anger when it's actually a sense of unfairness that is being triggered within us. It's a kind of kinaos, and I'm not saying that it's on behalf of the klal, but even on behalf of ourselves or behalf of other vulnerable people that we see around us. Just imagine for a minute, okay? Imagine a young child who did not sleep at night, okay, was up with toothache. Okay, young child was up with toothache a whole night, is hungry and tired and taunted by a spouse, not by a spouse, taunted by a sibling. Okay. That child is going to be really miserable, and probably is going to act out in all kinds of ways. Now, let's see that same child had a wonderful night's sleep, had a great night's sleep, is well fed, rested, had a great morning, and now is taunted by a sibling. Probably the volume on that is going to be a whole lot more manageable because the child has a greater capacity to handle it at that moment. If we take a woman who has gone for years being invisible, um, not having her needs met in so many ways, not having her need for validation met, not having her need for being listened to, being truly heard, being experienced as a valuable person, not having that been met. Maybe she needs a lot more help, and her need for help has been completely ignored, and she doesn't even believe that she deserves help because she never got help. So why should she think that she even deserves it? She's so used to being invisible that she doesn't even know that there's an unmet need there. And then she explodes. And then she's told that she's an angry person. She needs to work on her anger. And then she goes to some kind of Shalom Bayis class where they tell her that you have to know that everything is Nishamayim. Whatever you don't have, you don't need. Okay? Emuna. Sounds like Emuna, right? Whatever you don't have, you don't need. Except that if you don't have vitamin B, and somebody, a child, I saw a child in the park the other day walking, with legs, how do you do it? Bent outwards, okay, like this. If a child doesn't get vitamin D at a young age, a child can develop rickets and doesn't walk properly, and their legs are bent. If we don't know what we need, and we don't even know how to meet it, does that mean we're supposed to just live without it? Except the signs are there. The signs are you're dysregulated. You don't know how to control this burst of anger that's coming out. And really, there's so much unfairness under the surface. And I'm not saying it's unfair from Hashem. Okay, I'm not saying that Hashem is unfair. And we can have 100% imuna whilst recognizing at the same time that I have unmet needs. And what so many women have said to me over the years is, well, if my husband isn't giving this to me, or if my mother isn't giving this to me, then I have to learn to live without it. Okay? If the person who I want to get it from, okay, I wanted to get the acceptance and validation from my mother, she didn't give it to me, so I have to learn to live without it. I wanted to get the attention, validation, and emotional support from my husband, and he's not giving it to me, so I have to learn to live without it. And then we're living with an unmet need similar to fasting. I didn't get food, so I'm supposed to live without food. I was giving a series in recently I had a live class on Emunah B'Tachon that I was giving a series here in Eretz Yisrael. And as we were sitting around, the fan was blowing. It was a hot room. It was a hot day. The mazgan was on. The air conditioning was on, but it wasn't quite reaching every corner of the room. And so the fan was on, and I personally was really, really hot. And so I was happy to have the fan blowing on me. And there was some other women who were near the fan who wanted to be nearer the fan, and there was some movement around the room. So this question was being raised about if we don't have it, how much status should we do to get something? And so I said, we just had a live example over here. Are we allowed to move across the room if we're too hot in order to sit near the fan? Or if we're sitting in front of the fan and it's uncomfortable, we're allowed to move away? So Maria, yeah, right? Of course we're allowed to move. That's not, we don't even think that that's ishtadlis. It's ishtadlis. We're allowed to move ourselves to a more comfortable position. So we're allowed to take steps to get our needs met. In fact, we have to take steps to get our needs met. We cannot assume that we're on a level higher than the Baal Shem Tov, that we don't need to make any hishtadlis to get our needs met. Not only that, but we don't get to choose who is going to meet our needs. The Baal Shem Tov was once walking down a street and he hadn't eaten that day. He knocked on a door and then carried on walking. The Balabite opened the door, didn't see anybody outside the door, and then he saw this Yid walking down the street. So he ran after him and he said, "Excuse me, Rabbi Yid, did you knock on my door?" He said, "Yes, I knocked on your door." He said, "Why did you knock on my door and walked away?" He said, "I haven't eaten. I needed to do hishtadlis so that I would eat. But more than that, to wait around and, to get it from you, that I didn't need to do." That was already, for the Baal Shem Tov, that was too much. But knocking, doing an act in order to get our needs met, we're supposed to do. Not only that, but Yosef Atzadik made too much hishtadlis. But if we don't do enough hishtadlis, then maybe we're going to feel like, if I would only have done more hishtadlis, that's what Rav Dessler says, we have to do enough hishtadlis so that even if it would fail, we would still know I did mine. I did as much hishtadlis as I needed to do, and I wouldn't start to question, if I would have only done more hishtadlis, then maybe I could have got my needs met. If I'm blaming someone and I'm feeling angry, this is a sign that I need to do more hishtadlis, and I need to stop deciding who is supposed to be the shaliach for me. And I'm supposed to realize, if the people who I wanted to get it from are not giving it to me, whatever it is, then I need to do more hishtadlis to get my needs met. My needs are valid. And this kind of anger comes from not getting our needs met. And so many women have found that as soon as they begin to take action to get their needs met, sometimes it's just more sleep, rest. Sometimes it's downtime. Sometimes it's going out to do things that you enjoy, or just even a recent client of mine who just spending half an hour every day reading a book that she likes, just half an hour a day for herself, mother of small children, half an hour a day. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but you know what? It's giving her such a sense of, wow, I've got my own little time for myself. When we meet our needs, then all of a sudden the pressure cooker, the air is taken out of the pressure cooker. We become more regulated people. So this midah of kenas can be a midah that we initially experience as anger, but we have to translate it in our heads. We have to realize that very possibly what we need is to take responsibility, to act out of achrayus. We have to have a sense of responsibility for ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. So many of us are going through life never really having been taken care of in the way that we would like to take care of our children in the most ideal way. And maybe then we don't even know what it feels like to be taken care of. And we need to begin to take care of ourselves so that we feel taken care of. Sometimes if we don't feel taken care of, we could, look all around and blame everybody. But really, the only one who needs to take care of ourselves is us. And whenever we're experiencing that anger, we have to ask ourselves, okay, where am I seeing something that feels unfair? Am I feeling, do I have an unmet need myself that it feels unfair, that I can take responsibility for within myself and my life? Can I take responsibility to meet my needs? If they forgot my birthday, what can I do for myself to make myself feel great for my birthday, or to get myself something that I really want that would be just a little bit, indulgent for myself, to make me feel cared for and special? Hashem wants us to feel cared for and special. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created mankind uniquely weaker and more vulnerable than every other kind of animal creation in the world. That every other kind of animal creation lives and gets up and is completely independent, at least by a few weeks of their life. A human child is utterly, utterly dependent. And so the dependence wound can often be so painful because we are dependent on parents who sometimes are imperfect. We're all children of trauma. Since the Holocaust and the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, we're in the 3 weeks now, we're all born into trauma. We're all born into trauma-informed families. They may not realize that it's trauma-informed, but we're all in some kind of trauma-informed environment. And our job then is to realize, so okay, the original bond of getting what I needed, of attachment, the point of its interruption, the point of it not being everything I needed, is so that we can turn all of that need to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then we're left with the question, so why does it hurt so much? Why does it hurt? We want it. We want this communication. We want validation. We want understanding. We want appreciation. There are so many things that we need and that we want, and it hurts so much when we don't get the things that we need. And the answer is because if it didn't hurt, then we wouldn't care. We wouldn't care if it didn't hurt. The world says that necessity is the mother of invention, but I think really pain is the mother of all invention. If it didn't hurt, we wouldn't be motivated to try. We wouldn't be motivated to try and fix. We wouldn't be motivated to move closer to Hashem. It's only because it hurts so much that we seek out Hashem. I always say, no one ever called me and said, my life is so great. I'm so happy. Everything in my life is so well balanced. I have to find Hashem. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And we're motivated to find Hashem because it hurt, because we don't know how to deal with the situation, because we have this kind of maybe an inner kinos that is driving us and we don't quite know what to do with it and we need to find direction. Let's begin this week, Be'ez Hashem, to judge ourselves more favorably. Maybe some of the anger that we're experiencing is actually kinos. Maybe it is a zealousness of responsibility, of a sense of responsibility to protect the honor of a Jewish princess who is ourselves, of our children, of a member of Klal Yisrael who is vulnerable. Maybe we're being called to take some kind of an action. And maybe it won't be completely understood by everybody around, just as Pinchas was not understood. But Hashem sees the heart. Hashem knows our intentions. When we really try, when we really try, and we consider contemplate with ourselves and understand what our motive is, and allow ourselves to feel the feelings and recognize what's going on. And again, we're not going to look for korbanos. We're not going to look to go and execute anybody like Pinchas. That's not what we're looking to do. But we're going to take that midah, the good midah of kanos, the good midah of zealousness, and apply it to responsibility, to taking sometimes unpopular courses of action in order to protect out of responsibility for whoever we're responsible for and for the klal as a whole, to risk being judged, because that's anybody that takes unpopular kind of action is going to risk being judged. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to offer the bris of peace. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows when we're doing something out of responsibility and out of love for Klal Yisrael, out of a love for the honor of Hashem, that people should be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we want the emes, we want a true connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we want to help other people have a true connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we do that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us. Oh gosh, as one of our members is saying, you described me and my life. Thank you for understanding the difficulties and the pains. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so sorry for you and your pains. And I'm so glad that you're here and that simply hearing that can give you a sense of being validated. Kinaros isn't bad. It is a good midah. When we feel a anger rising within us, let's at least ask ourselves, maybe it's not a bad anger. Maybe it's coming from a sense of responsibility and a sense of there's some unfairness going on. There's something not right, and I want to fix it. I want to fix the childush that's going on here. I want to make it better. I want to do it for the klal. I want to do it for the vulnerable people. I want to show up in a way that I can, even risking impopularity. Be'ez Hashem. Ladies have been asking me about the new series that Be'ez Hashem I'm going to be launching this coming Monday. Be'ez Hashem, over the years, I began teaching emunah and bitachon, and it was my life's journey, my life's mission to share the Torah of emunah, of bitachon, of what is the difference between them, how do we gain them, and Baruch Hashem, through being privy to the lives of thousands of women around the world over the years, I've learned the landscape of how we grow in emunah bitachon, of what it means within ourselves, of how we apply the sources that we learn, and how we integrate it, how we can take the messages of emunah bitachon that we learn, that we're surrounded by, from our head and put them into our hearts, how we can live with them, and how we navigate the ups and downs, how we navigate the vacillation within our lives. And over the last few weeks, we as a nation, we went through some of the most intense times in Jewish history. We witnessed incredible miracles and we witnessed terrifying times, and it's still uncertain and it's still unsafe in so many places. And whether we're in Eretz Yisrael and we don't know where, what our neighbors are going to be coming up with, or whether we're in Chutz La'aretz and the anti-Semitism is rampant. The Kadosh Baruch Hu sends the means to remind us of how to come back to Him. What is the call of the time? What do we want? Over the years where I was teaching, I found that giving over lots and lots and lots of information is, it could be interesting, it could be fascinating, but it also leads to a lot of disconnect to who we are and where am I on the journey. This new group that is launching Be'ez Hashem on Monday is a small, select group. It's not for everybody. It's only for those who want to be part of a kind of masterminding group of women who've been working on their Emunah B'tachon, and you want to know, what's my next step? Where am I on this journey? How do I know where I am, and how do I know what my next step is? How can I believe in myself even when I feel myself so far away from my goal? And what do I do with all of my questions? What do I do with all of my doubts about myself? What do I do with feelings? How does that play in with the whole thing? The first session of the 6 sessions is going to be really just, where are we? Look how far we've come. What have been the tools that you've been using over the last month to hold on to your emunah? Because all of us, everyone who's here, has emunah and bitachon. Every woman who is listening to this and everyone who is here, I'm so delighted to see all of your names, and I'm giving a big call out to every single one of you. Thank you so much for being here, all of my friends. Every one of you is a woman who values emunah and bitachon because you're here. Only a person who values emunah b'tachon is going to take the time on a Thursday to come and spend time listening to emunah b'tachon. But precisely because we value it, and because our goals sometimes are so high in it, we don't know how to recognize where are we really holding with emunah b'tachon, and we don't necessarily value who we are and what we've done. So this is going to be a situation where we're gonna ask together, where am I holding? What am I in emunah b'tachon, and what's my next step? And Be'ez Hashem, we're going to be addressing what the real questions are, where you have questions, what your questions are. Where do we go from here? There are answers of where do we go from here. And so I invite anybody who's interested to check out the link. You know what? Let me just put the link into the chat. I'm going to put the link to the course is called Unshaken. There's Be'ez Hashem. I'm going to put the link to the Google Doc with all the details in the chat right now. So anybody who wants to can check it out. Let's put this in. And Be'ez Hashem, what time is it? It's going to be Be'ez Hashem at 11 a.m. US time. 6 p.m. No, yeah, 6 p.m. Israel time. B'Siyata D'Shmaya. And it's just going to be small groups to allow for a really close-knit group to form and really be able to answer questions and give everybody a personalized blueprint going forward. Where are you going? You know, where do you want to go? How are you going to get there? Real tools. Anybody have any questions about anything? About Kenos, about Pinchas? I don't know if I have the answers, but emunah b'tachon. This is a space where you can ask questions, and you can for sure put them in the chat if you don't want everyone to see them, or you could unmute and share. Great to see your face. Yes, hello. You're muted. Want to speak? I thought you're still muted. You're muted, my dear. Yes, hi.
I'll say thank you again. Just wanted to ask, I see people are messaging. The only way that I could message is to everyone.
Yes.
Is it my phone or?
No, you can, so choose, if you go to the, let me see, how can you?
I can't message you.
Into
directly.
Chat, let me see. If you go into chat, so it's showing me all the participants, and you can find a participant to
so there must be something wrong with the setting on my phone, maybe. I realized that.
1 second. If I directly contact you, then you'll be able to directly answer to me back. So I'm just going to, okay, I'll send a message to you. 1 second. I'll chat right directly to you.
Anybody else is having this issue? I used to be able to like message anyone.
Yeah, I don't know why
privately
that wouldn't
while
be
they were
legal, but you
okay.
can
But
definitely
now it's
answer
over,
to.
so maybe next time.
Okay, if
So
anybody
maybe we'll
wants
see
to.
you on Monday.
Okay, that would be
Maybe.
great. That would be a delight to see anybody
Okay.
who wants to come and join that.
Take care. Have a good
Thank you
Shabbos.
for
Thank
speaking up.
you.
And you have a beautiful Shabbos. Anybody else want to unmute? Share something. Share your own thought. I love to hear from the community. You want to share a thought, something that you heard or thought? I'd love to hear from you. If anybody wants to, or simply if you want to ask a question, please do go ahead if you'd like to. Yes, anybody? If not, we'll be finishing soon. I want to say really from my heart, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share the Torah of Asher and other insights that gathered along the way. And may we all be zeiche to grow in emunah and bitachon be'ez Hashem. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody. Bye for now.